Watercolor skies can be quite intimidating. They look easy to paint, but they can quickly get complicated when we accidentally create mud or clouds that look too stiff. But this is a simple challenge to paint 8 watercolor skies today, starting nice and easy and trying to work my way up to more complex sunsets. I'm inviting you to join me on what I found was an extremely productive session that taught me a lot and only took up a small portion of my afternoon. Watercolor skies can really be a joy to paint, and by the 8th sky I was on a roll and just wanted to keep on going because it's so easy to get the hang of it after the first hurdles. So let's get into it and start with a very simple sky anyone can paint. I started in an old unfinished sketchbook that immediately lowered my expectations and made me feel more daring, even though the paper was hot pressed smooth, which I think makes it more challenging, so I wouldn't blame myself if things went wrong. With a big mop brush, I paint a watery rectangle, choosing a random blue, and using a scrunched up piece of kitchen paper, I go in while the paint is still wet and sop it up using a blotting motion. I am literally just lifting that paint right off the paper before it has time to sink in and stain it. This is the simplest way to achieve that blue sky with puffy clouds. Is it perfect? No, but that's not why we're here. I felt myself getting pulled into the process and forgetting about the world, and that was good enough for me. You can get a very satisfying sky using this very simple technique. I added a little frame with an Inktense pencil just to make it look more like a window. Sunsets are always scarier to me because the risk of getting mud is higher. If, for example, yellow or orange overlap with blues or violets, you could start getting greens in your sky, and though these might appear in northern lights, they wouldn't really appear in sunsets. It's also harder to get the right pinks and reds, so I swatched the colours first on a small sketchbook. I used the same exact technique as I did with the first sky. So I created that watery rectangle, mixing my pinks and earthy yellows, and then I went in with my scrunched up kitchen paper to lift the paint out to create the clouds. If the paint just flows back into the white space you lifted out for the clouds, your paper might be too wet. So give it another 30 seconds or a minute and go in and try again. If nothing or too little lifts out, you've left it too long, so give it another go. A lot of it also depends on your climate and humidity levels. It has nothing to do with your skills. It's just a matter of going in with that kitchen paper at the right time, and you'll easily get the hang of it, I promise. And to avoid getting mud, if you notice that happening, the simplest way is to just keep the colours you don't want to blend into each other in separate areas of the painting. For sky number 3, I started off with the same watery rectangle, but this time I did not use the kitchen paper. I went for a different lifting method, and you'll see that in a minute. But before I started lifting out the paint, I went in with darker, ever so slightly thicker layer of paint, but still very liquid, and painted around my main clouds. I think sometimes it's easier to get more natural looking clouds if you don't go for the classic sheep in the sky look. So I almost created like a starfish shape, the kind of clouds you see on windy summer days. This more random approach steers us away from stiff looking clouds. When it came to lifting, I went in with a smaller brush, and this will have to be almost dry for it to work, and just started lifting out some little feathery clouds around my main ones I had painted around. I also softened the edges of the clouds with a clean, slightly damp brush where I thought they looked too sharp. Working wet and wet will naturally give your sky that very soft look. This technique is slightly more challenging than the first one, but not impossible at all if you give it a few tries. Again, a lot of it boils down to how wet or dry everything is, and you have to make sure that when you lift, your brush is not too damp, which is a common mistake. And then, as you can see, I went around some of the edges of the clouds once the paint was much drier to create some contrast with a darker blue. You can see all my hesitation here, as I am quite a beginner myself when it comes to painting skies in watercolour. And for sky number 4, rinse and repeat, literally. Rinse your brush well. You don't want to start off with a dirty, polluted wash. Colours that would work well here for the sunset would be Madder Lake Red Light, Rose Doré, Permanent Pink, Carmines, Violets, all the cool reds and pinks. Again, as with sky number 3, I painted the watery rectangle, carved out the main clouds with that second layer of paint, again testing my colours on my little sketchbook as I went along. And by this stage I really felt I was slowly starting to get more confident and less scared that I'd create a mess. Like trying to paint water with watercolour, which I've tried before on this challenge, less successfully I believe, painting the sky is one of those things that at the end of the day just asks for more simplicity and nothing too fancy. So if you're feeling nervous, just keep it simple. Don't use too many colours and concentrate on the layering and lifting. And as we're halfway through the 8 Sky Challenge, I'll take a moment to announce my new class painting a full sketchbook spread in watercolour is now up on Skillshare. So if you'd like to have a go at it, I'll leave the link to it down below. Also, sign up to my newsletter as we'll be having a free live sketching challenge lasting 3 days from July the 12th. So if you want to get notified about that, my newsletter will remind you and send you the links to join for free. Or, of course, if you're a patron, then you're already part of my online community where you don't only learn from me, but with me. I learn right alongside you in weekly co-sketching and bi-monthly painting sessions, which you can follow live or through the replays. Absolutely all levels are welcome. My channel here on YouTube is a bit of a doorway into the larger and more interactive art studio that is my patron community. So the link to that will also be down below, but now back to the Sky Challenge. Now that I was feeling like I was a bit more aware of how to go about painting skies, I switched up to cold pressed paper cards. I should have said this in the beginning, but painting skies on cold pressed paper or rough paper is probably more ideal for the nature of the subject. I immediately noticed the difference as the paint will sit in the grooves of the paper's texture, creating granulation and interesting organic looking effects. For the second 4 skies, I didn't use my kitchen paper at all. I just repeated the technique I used for the previous 2 skies. I used a cobalt blue and an ultramarine blue, or a warm blue and a cool blue, and I really loved the interaction between these 2. I almost felt like I could take none of the credit for how the sky turned out because the paint seemed to just flow in a magical way and do all the work. But of course, if you are taking this challenge along with me, pausing the video here and there because the footage is edited and it's not all here, that's not true. You will also have to give yourself credit for having learnt the technique with those first 4 skies that really broke the ice. And from here on, it is going to be easier and more exciting. But this is where I really noticed how important it is to have thick paper, as the cards started curling at the edges due to all the watery paint. And these were 300 GSM, so pretty thick. I also added some black marker around the corners to frame the skies and make them pop. My sixth sky was another sunset. I really loved painting these juicy pink skies. Again, I started off with a watery rectangle painted with my mop brush and carved out some clouds in my second, slightly thicker layer. Repetition is key. It really makes the skills and the process stick. I started getting a little more daring with colours, adding some more vibrant pinks, as you'll see in a minute, like pops of opera pink here and there, which is a really bright, almost neon colour. But I knew that if I didn't like the way it looked, I could easily lift it out with my brush while it was still damp. At this stage, I was working very intuitively and I was completely absorbed in my work. It was like being transported to another planet. I was absolutely loving every second of it, and to think that I was reluctant to even start this challenge because I thought that at the very most I could paint that very first sky using the scrunched up kitchen paper to lift the clouds out. But turns out that if you keep going, you really get into the groove of things and start to kind of flow. Things start to kind of flow on their own. I think the earthy yellows work beautifully with the pinks and the violets as well, which at this stage I was still keeping well away from the yellow in case it created some greys or muddy colours I didn't like. And also getting more confident using that smaller brush to lift out and more playful with where I added those wispy clouds. By my second last sky, I really started to experiment more, making the clouds more puffy, getting a bit more creative and fearless, so to speak, with playing with their shapes, adding some crisp edges to some of the clouds and glazing over some of them as well with light washes of blue so that the cloud itself had proper transition in values without having to necessarily change colour. The most daring thing I did was add yellows in with those blues, and I succeeded in not getting any odd looking greens. I think it's just a matter of going in with very thin layers or when the colours have already dried almost completely or completely, trying to make sure there's not too much of an overlap so that you don't reactivate the underlying layers. And I was really happy with this one. My last sky was a bit of a wrap-up of all that I had learnt with the previous ones. I really went a bit crazy with the shape of the clouds and with the use of all the colours I had been using throughout this challenge, knowing that I could probably get away with it by now. Though I do have to admit there were ugly phase moments in these last two paintings where for a minute or two I feared I had ruined them and thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? But I pushed through, and this was one of the most relaxing and enjoyable painting sessions I have had with myself for a while. So thank you to my lovely patron Despina for suggesting this theme for this YouTube video. And also your suggestions are always welcome, so leave them in the comment box. Let me know what you'd like to see or what you'd like me to explain. If you do take this challenge, please share the outcome with me by sharing your sky on my Facebook group, Fiona De Pinto's Watercolor Students. It's in the description box. I'll leave it below, as with everything else, or by tagging me on Instagram at the handle Drawings in a Drawer, all in one word. I really had a blast with this one, so please give it a go yourself. As always, thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now.